Congregation this evening. We're going to invite you to come in and take your seats. We're thrilled to see so many of you here in person, and we're thrilled you're so happy to see each other. But it is Shabbat, so let's begin. Welcome, everyone. Our service is going to begin with words of welcome. Shalom Aleichem. You can find them on page 24 in your prayer books or on the screens behind me. Shalom Aleichem. Please do join us. Shalom Aleichem, Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon, Melech Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Tzedchem l'shalom, Malchei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon, Melech Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Shalom Aleichem, Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon, Melech Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh, HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. We extend to all of you a very warm welcome. For those of you who are here, those of you who are streaming, we equally offer you a warm welcome. We are commemorating and marking a couple of important, incredibly important things on this Shabbat. But most of all, for now, we're just happy to have you here in community, an hour to withdraw from the frenetic nature of our lives, to be able to plug into what's happening with ourselves, our relationships, perhaps even with our Maker. We have two incredibly wonderful young people becoming Bnei Mitzvah tomorrow. In honor of their Bnei Mitzvah, we want to call on the parents of the Letterman family and the Thomas's family to come up to kindle the Sabbath lights.
This one? Okay. As we light these Shabbat candles, we link ourselves with the generations of our people who have kindled these holy flames. Time passes quickly, and we take this moment to pause and express our gratitude. We stand here as a family with humility and with love for this occasion, for one another, and for being a part of this sacred community. As we participate in this age-old ritual, We embrace this moment as we move forward in the cycle of our lives.
Yesterday we held our children in our arms, and tomorrow they will be called to the Torah as Bnei Mitzvah. These Shabbat candles remind us not only of the joy of this occasion, but they help us to see the light within one another and the strengths that each of us possesses. Grateful for all the precious gifts in our lives, we kindle the Shabbat lights. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lahadlik ner shel Shabbat.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat. Amen. On Shabbat, we come together for a lot of different reasons. And as Rabbi Goretz mentioned, on this Shabbat, we come together to honor our collective memory. As Jews, we know that there are pieces of our history that are painful and dark. And yet on Shabbat, we're also commanded to honor this holy day through celebratory music, prayers, and communal expression. So it might sometimes seem like these two things are at odds with one another, but I would actually argue that that is not the case. First of all, as Jews, we are well rehearsed at the act of holding two simultaneous truths: joy and sorrow, birth and death, mitzvah and memory. And I was thinking about a rabbinic teaching regarding the celebration of the mitzvah of marriage, that when we join two souls under the chuppah, that the seudat mitzvah, the celebratory feast that follows the ceremony, is actually part of the mitzvah. You're commanded to get together, to sing songs, to join in revelry, to make silly dances in front of the beloveds. And that is all wrapped up in the sacred obligation of the celebration. So on this evening, as we remember one of the darkest chapters in our collective memory, and also honor members of our community who have worked to heal brokenness in our world, we hold our sadness and we hold our sorrow, but we also celebrate. We celebrate what it means to be together, to be here as a community, free to lift our voices in song and in prayer, and free to express the truth of who we are and the joy that it is to be Jewish. So we're going to continue with Kabbalat Shabbat, with one of my favorite Kabbalat Shabbat melodies, and I hope that you will allow yourself to really celebrate, to revel in the magic of Shabbat, to lift your eyes up to the screens behind me, and lift your voices, even if you're unsure of the words, and let yourself be transported on this evening as a community. Shiru Ladonai, Shir Chadash, we sing a new song unto God. Give it a try. Shiru Ladonai, Shir Chadash, Shiru Ladonai, Kol Haaretz. Shiru Ladonai, Baruch Hu Shemo, Basru miyom leyom Yeshuato. Sapru v'goyim kevodo, bechol ha'amim niflotav, ki gadol Adonai, umechulal meod, norahu al kol Elohim, ki chol Elohim.
שיר חדש, שירו לאדוני כל הארץ, שירו לאדוני ברכו שמו, פסו מיום ליום ישועתו. שירו לאדוני שיר חדש, שירו לאדוני כל הארץ, שירו לאדוני ברכו שמו, פסו מיום ליום ישועתו.
You sound beautiful.
לקראת קהלה בני שבת נקבלה, לך אדוני לקראת קהלה בני שבת נקבלה. שמור וזכור ודיבור אחד, השמיענו אל המיוחד, אדוני אחד ושמו אחד, לשם ולתפארת ולתהילה. לך אדוני לקראת קהלה בני שבת נקבלה, לך אדוני לקראת קהלה בני שבת נקבלה. לקראת שבת לכו ונלכה, כי היא מקור הברכה, בראש מקדם נסוכה, סוף מעשה במחשבה תחילה. לך אדוני לקראת קהלה בני שבת נקבלה, לך אדוני לקראת קהלה בני שבת נקבלה. התעוררי התעוררי, כי באורך קומי אורי אורי אורי, שיר דברי כבוד אדוני עלייך נגלה. לך אדוני לקראת קהלה בני שבת נקבלה, לך אדוני לקראת קהלה בני שבת נקבלה. בואי ושלום עטרת בעלה, גם בשמחה ובצהלה, תוך אמוני עם סגולה. בואי חלה, בואי חלה. לך אדוני לקראת קהלה בני שבת נקבלה, לך אדוני לקראת קהלה בני שבת נקבלה, לך אדוני לקראת קהלה בני שבת נקבלה, לך אדוני לקראת קהלה בני שבת נקבלה.
We turn ahead in our prayer books to page 146 and invite you to please rise for the Baruch Hu. Please join me in the Hebrew. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bidvaro ma'ariv aravim, b'chokhmah poteach she'arim, u'bitvuna mishane itim, u'machalif et hazmanim, u'misader et hakochavim, b'mishmeroteim barakir kirtzono, borei yom v'layla, golel or mipnei choshech, v'choshech mipnei or.
ומעביר יום ומביא לילה, ומבדיל בין יום ובין לילה, אדוני צבאות שמו, אל חי וקיים, תמיד ימלוך עלינו לעולם ועד, ברוך אתה אדוני, המעריב ערבים.
In each age, we receive and transmit Torah. At each moment, we are addressed by the world together.
In each age, we are challenged by our ancient teaching. At each moment, we stand face to face with truth.
In each age, we add our wisdom to that which has gone before. At each moment, the knowing heart is filled with wonder.
In each age, the children of Torah become its builders and seek to set the world firm on a foundation of truth. Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev Amo Yisrael.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto.
Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha u'b'chol nafshecha u'b'chol me'odecha v'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavecha hayom al levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam B'shivtecha b'beitecha, u'vlechtecha v'derech, u'vshochbecha u'vkumecha, u'kshartam le'ot al yadecha, v'hayu letotafot b'neinecha, u'chtavtam al mezuzot beitecha, u'vish'arecha, leman tizkeru, ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם. אדוני אלוהיכם אמת.
We worship the power that unites the universe, a promise of harmony for all.
Yet that oneness eludes our grasp as imperfection and evil abound.
Before our eyes, there is a vision of perfection, of order, of goodness.
There is evil enough to break the heart, and there is good enough to exalt the soul.
So when will redemption come?
When we grant everyone what we claim for ourselves.
Long ago, we escaped the tyranny of Egypt. Our people saw the power of the Most High. We learn God's presence redeems time and event, so we celebrate this power that makes for freedom.
Nehtar b'kodesh, nora
שנאמר, כי פדה אדוני את יעקב, וגאלו מיד חזק ממנו, ברוך אתה אדוני, גאל ישראל.
Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom, v'amidenu shomrenu l'chaim, ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha. Those words may be my favorite words from Friday night liturgy. It means literally, cover us, God, protect us. Somehow give us peace and stand us up, protect us so we could have life. Ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha, cover us, all of us, with your sukkah, with your covering of peace. I don't believe that God just swoops down and covers us and gives us peace. I believe that God calls on us to partner, to bring peace, to bring cover. This weekend, for the first time in person in 3 years, we are celebrating Mitzvah Day. Not a new concept, thank God. Actually, thousands of years old, this concept. It wasn't created here at TBJ. Mitzvah Day, like Yom Kippur, should not be the only day we fulfill a mitzvah, just like we shouldn't just say sorry once a year. It's paradigmatic. It's there to hone our souls, to exercise our spirits, so we understand that we have an obligation to the world. The word mitzvah, as I often quip at bar bat mitzvahs, doesn't mean good deed, even though that's what we all grew up thinking it means. That's just a category. It means commandment. And here's another one that I've actually never shared with you in my time here. If you break down the root of the word, it means a potential to do something different. A potential for you to be different, to be an upstander, to clean up after a mess, to feed people when they're hungry, to clothe them when they're naked, to free them when they feel oppressed. When I got here 16 years ago, a group of people made an appointment to see me. And they walked in already angry, and I didn't know what I could have done to have made them angry. I'd just been here for 2 weeks. And they said, all the churches in the area, let their churches be refuge for people who are homeless, 2 weeks a year. All the synagogues give money, but none of them use their houses to be houses of refuge, to actually become a homeless shelter. Now, I just come from Road of Shalom, where we did it 5 days a week, 10 months a year. So I thought, that's ludicrous. This is exactly who we need to be. And they said, you mean you're going to be behind us, Rabbi? And I said, I don't know how to do it any other way. So that original group of people, which has grown into a bigger group of people, kicked something off that for the last, because of the pandemic, 14 and a half years, 2 and sometimes 4 weeks a year, we were the first synagogue in Essex County to be a homeless shelter. A couple of weeks a year, if not 4 weeks a year. And after that, of course, people followed suit. I don't say that to sound self-serving, but it was our opportunity to be different, to have the potential for sacredness, to be special, to be unique, to do our part, our very small part, because there's so much out there. So this weekend, come for Mitzvah Day. We left actually that hallway open to see what looks like a mess, but it's not a mess. It's unbelievable generosity of our congregation, which all week long has been bringing things in so that we can engage in being different this weekend. So IHN, the Interfaith Hospitality Network, which has now changed names to, I think, Family Promise, did I get that right? Is switching gears because of the pandemic, and they're going to continue to house homeless, and we're going to continue to support the effort, but for many reasons, mostly health-related, not in houses of worship, but very much connected to so. So we, this Friday night, wanted to specifically honor those people who were bold enough to come to my office and say, this is what I demand of you, Rabbi, for this congregation to be different, and then for the next generation to take over from them. So tonight, and the original 3 that came to my office were Leanne Mandelbaum, Sharon Weintraub, and Lori Jacobs, 2 of whom live in the city. One of them is away for the weekend, Sharon Cohen, and then here with us, the next generation who've been doing this now for years, Sharon Portnoy, Sarah Leonard, Judy Flax, and Karen Feldman. I'm going to ask those of you who are here to come up on this evening that we celebrate mitzvah, that we cover you, with that cover of peace, because the truth is that you've covered us with peace. I've never seen you so embarrassed to do anything in life. Come on up here. Come stand over here. They like to be behind the scenes in the kitchen. Come, you guys get closer to each other. We're going to cover you in the way that we hope God covers us. Holy One of blessing, as we pray to you as the one who shelters us with peace, we ask you to bless these beautiful souls who've worked with hand, heart, and spirit to manifest peace in our world. They are, as you just saw, humble servants who don't ask for reward and don't ask for accolade. You are generous servants who give the deepest, from the deepest crevices of your beings. You are compassionate people who live to balance the scales of justice in our world, especially here at our neighborhood doorstep. So, dear God, on this evening, bless them with strength and fortitude and good fortune. Bless us to be aware of their sacred work in order for us to be inspired to follow their lead. You are indeed mitzvah heroes, moral exemplars of what it means to sew community together. You ensure through your aspirational example that we literally feed those who are hungry, clothe those who are naked, and free those who are shackled in oppression. We express our gratitude to all of you because you have lovingly and generously given to our world, to people who are searching and pursuing being whole. You don't do it because you have to, but because you yearn to make our community fair and equal and right. You make people smile because you care. You treat the stranger as yourself. You understand that we shouldn't sleep soundly unless everyone has a place to rest their own heads. You embody in every sense of the understanding that we are all responsible for one another, every single one of us. You remind us constantly that yes, every single life is equal to an entire world. So dear God, bless these beautiful souls, these sacred beings, that they should be filled up with everything for which they yearn, in the same way that they have filled others. We are so lucky to call the four of you and the others who are not with us tonight members of our sacred family, because you make us better people. Dear God, bless them as we, as one community, say, Amen. Thank you. I know some of you out there thinking, boy, for the whole pandemic, they stopped kissing. We're back. On the top of page 155, we ask you to please rise for the blessings of the Amidah.
Adonai sifatai tiftach ufi yagid tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'konei HaKol, V'zocher Chastei Avot v'Imahot, U'mevi Geulah livnei bneihem, Leman Shemo be'ahava, Melech Ozer u'Moshia u'Magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham, Bezrat Sarah, Atah Gibor leolam Adonai, Mechayei HaKol, Atah Rav lehoshia, מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיי הכל ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר, מי כמוך בעל גבורות, ומידו מלך, מלך ממית ומחיה, ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה להחיות הכל. ברוך אתה אדוני מחיי הכל. אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש, וקדושים בכל יום יהללוך סלע. ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש.
Please be seated. At this point in our service, we have the opportunity to offer prayers of healing to those in our community who are in need of such. On this Shabbat, we send our prayers to Chavasara Batlea, Cindy Baker, and Erwin Baker, to Maurice Clark, Ada Barbie Coravelli, Moshe Danielle, Marcy Goldsmith, Elliot Goldstein, and Rick Gratt, to Bernard Klein, Julie Levine, and David Rothman, to Teresa Schlossberg, Tammy Schwartzberg, Shmuel Ben Rivka, Barry Suskin, and Johnny West. If there are others in our community for whom you'd like us to say a public Misha Berach, a public prayer for healing, please raise your hand. I'll acknowledge you to say their name out loud, and if you feel so inclined, to share your relationship with them. Prayers of healing. Judy? Thank you. Kathy? Sure. Thank you. Yeah, Billy? Thank you, Howard.
Maureen Rauschberg, my niece.
Thank you. Yeah, Fred. Yep. Thank you. Baruch atah Adonai Rofeh Cholim. We praise you, Adonai, our God, you who we call healer of the sick. We ask you to pray with us together. Prayer for healing.
Mi sheberach avotenu mikor habracha li'imotenu. May the source of strength, who blessed the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say,
As the drum beats of war continue to bang across the world, we still have that fervent hope, and hopefully inspired by action, to bring forth that most precious and that most elusive gift of all, the gift of shalom, indeed, the gift of peace, Page 164, we pray for peace. Shalom Rav.
Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Ki ata hu melech adon lechol hashalom. Shalom, Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. B'tov be'einecha levarech et amcha Yisrael, b'chol עת ובכל שעה, בשלומך. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam, Tasim Leolam, Tasim Leolam.
And now just a few more moments to dig deeper inside. We do that with perhaps our most precious asset, and that is indeed of silence.
Ose shalom bimroma, hu yaseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imeru amen. Shalom bimroma, hu yaseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imeru amen. Shalom bimroma, hu yaseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. As many of you know, and in the day and age of social media, it's a little bit easier to access. Yesterday was Yom HaShoah, Holocaust Memorial Day, which always obviously marks an incredibly dark period of our history, getting further and further away from people who experienced it, but still some are around to share their experience, and also, as importantly, to take lessons that we should sow in and integrate to our own lives. I was on the carpool line, as we are every Sunday morning, to greet kids coming into religious school about 3 or 4 months ago. And a woman who I would say I actually didn't know so well joined the congregation just a few years ago. The pandemic, of course, removes a couple of those years. And she said, I want to share a book with you that my dad wrote. And I said, okay, I'm a rabbi, I should take a book if she offers it. And I took it, and her father is Pinchas Eliyahu Blit, who is a Holocaust survivor. I read the book, I was incredibly moved by it. And then said, I'd love to meet him if I can. She lives in Montreal, so we had a Zoom together and spent about an hour and a half on a Zoom. And I was even more moved than I was by the book because of the way his soul articulated his life experience and also the lessons that came from it. And I said, I would love to share this conversation with our community here. And he said, I would be honored to do so. So about an hour ago, I interviewed him from Montreal. And why not in front of you? Because we were worried that somehow something might go wrong, et cetera. And so you are about to see me here, but also see me there, interviewing Pinchas Blit, who is coming into us from Montreal. And just let me tell you just a moment about him. Pinchas Blit was born in Kordelice, Poland, but now is Ukraine, of all places, in 1931 or 32. They don't know exactly why, but given the history. Pinchas and his family immigrated to Canada in 1948 and settled in Montreal, where he attended Teachers College and law school. In addition to a long career as a lawyer, Pinchas was involved in the Yiddish theater community in Montreal for many years. He is the author of the memoir, Promise of Sweet Tea. Pinchas has 3 children and 5 grandchildren, again, one who belongs here, along with those grandchildren. He lives in Montreal with his life partner, Giselle. So Pinchas is not only going to come to you, and you're going to feel cheated because you should really hear the expanded story, but given his generosity, the foundation for which he wrote the memoir, sent us 50 copies for free of his book. So outside of the chapel, those who are compelled by the story can take a book with you so you can read the further story, because again, you're going to feel like this is not enough. And I would just say, because there's a lot more of you than there are books, one per family, that way actually everyone should be able to get one. Those of who want one, who's not here, and those of you who are online, I know you're probably feeling major FOMO right now, but we will make sure to get for anyone who needs. So if there are people who don't get, or those of you who want to get, just email us and we'll make sure we get you one. So it is really a privilege in a profound and hard way to welcome Pinchas Eliyahu Blit. Please. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. I am so honored this evening to be joined by Pinchas Blit, who is here to bear witness. And on this incredibly important day on our Jewish calendar, this incredibly somber day, we have someone who actually lived that history and spent a good deal of time thinking about it and writing about it. His book is called A Promise of Sweet Tea, which has come out and is being made available to everyone here this evening to take one of their own. So it's well worth your read, but more importantly, well worth having Pinchas in person. Not only is Pinchas here to speak tonight, but he's donated one of the most important pieces of his life. His daughter belongs to our congregation, as does his son-in-law and grandchildren. And Pinchas, it's so meaningful to have you here this evening. So thank you for coming in from Canada.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it means a lot. I want to start off by just asking you what compelled you to write a book. It's one thing to live a story, it's another thing to write it down. What made you finally decide to put it on paper and write this book?
Basically, the answer is very simple. Very few people heard about Kordelice. My son, Robert, who traveled to Kharkov, that's east where all the fighting is going on at this point, when mentioned to them, he said, my father comes from Kordelice. They never heard of it. And, the whole village was destroyed. The population was killed, around 3,000 people, including the Christians and, of course, the Jews. And nobody has written, I don't think, as far as I know. I did some research on this, and I found only one article by a fellow called Grigorovich, who lives in Toronto, and he wrote one article about the destruction of Korchalisi. I survived the war, and I think it's my duty. I thought it was my duty to tell this story about the killings and the murders of not only Jews, but also gypsies and Ukrainian Christians. The whole village was destroyed. I remember seeing the fire. It was burning. Korchalisi was on fire. We were already hiding in the forest by then.
Just you and your brother survived, correct?
But yeah, my brother and I and my parents, of course, and there was one other man. He survived because he served in the army. Binyamin was his first name. I don't remember his family name. And he lived in Argentina. When my parents were alive, they were in contact with him, but I don't know what happened now. But there was only one more person to be, straight about it. So
And
he
how many
survived
people,
because he was in the Soviet army.
how many people were population of the town?
Well, there were 2,892, I believe, Christians were killed by the Germans, murdered. As far as the Jewish families, I can walk down the street in my mind and can pick up every Jewish home, which was usually on the edge of the only street that Korchalisi had. And there must have been about maybe 25 Jewish homes, maybe close to 30 could be, and 100, 120 souls, I presume. It wasn't a large community, but it was a kehillah. It was, it was a Yiddish-speaking Jewish kehillah community that was able to maintain a Jewish life. It had everything that a Jewish community required. It had a synagogue. It had a mikveh. It had a cheder. It had a rov, a rebbe, and a melamed. It had everything that the Jewish community needed. The only thing it did not have was a cemetery. And the Gentiles, they had two cemeteries. And I used to see the elaborate funerals going on from one end of the village, from the church, to the other end of the village where the cemetery used to be. And I concluded very simply, I used logic. And my logic was that the reason we don't have a cemetery because Jews don't die. And that was my answer. And I knew it for many years that Jews don't die. And all my relatives were around. And I had two sets of grandparents and uncles and aunts. So I never saw a Jewish funeral. I never saw a Jewish person build a casket. I saw that Gentiles, Ukrainians, building caskets from a tree for the dead. And I saw funerals, almost daily events. So sometimes two funerals a day. It was a large population and people died. But we did not have a cemetery because the Jews buried their dead in a neighboring town called Ratna. I wasn't aware of it. I only discovered that after the war.
So besides the obvious destruction that was to come, you do say in the book that there was a harmony that you experienced before the Germans got there. Tell us about the town. You said there was a mikveh, there was a synagogue, but what was life like in your town before the Germans got there?
Well, there was, you see, a Yiddish-speaking community in a world of a Christian world, and yet there was peace and harmony. There was, my grandmother used to tell me about pogroms, but in my days there were no more pogroms. It was no more Cossacks around to kill Jews. But I wasn't aware of it really, and as I mentioned to you, until about age 5 or 6, I thought Jews don't die. But even though I read in the Bible and the Chumash that our patriarchs died and others, the characters in the Bible died, but I created my own logic. But it was a Jewish life. It was all Jewish. The fact that there were more Christians in the village did not affect the exercise of Jewishness in your home, in your synagogue, on the street. And what can I say? As a matter of fact, when I visited the Soviet Union, and I saw things happening there, meeting with Jewish activists, and so I was delighted to hear that there's a Jewish life will begin again in the Soviet Union. Well, it never happened. It was a dream.
But then you said, Pinchas, there was something called in the book, quote unquote, a Jew test. Well, tell us about that.
Oh, as a kid, there was they would tease me. My classmates would tease me and say that Jews, not only me and a few others, but all Jews don't know how to speak Ukrainian, and they speak with an accent. So they would ask me to pronounce the word kukuruza. Kukuruza in Ukrainian is Indian corn, and I would do my best to pronounce kukuruza. Kukuruza. I was so proud I was able to pronounce it properly, but I never was able to satisfy them. And then I would recite at the end, finally, I would recite Taras Shevchenko's poem, Yakum Ruta Pochavaitem Eninamohilu. And when I die, you bury me on top of the hill and my beloved Ukraine and so on. And I recited this poem that even Taras Shevchenko would be proud of me. But I could never satisfy them. And it made me very angry. I was very upset about the fact that they seriously accused me of not speaking Ukrainian properly. And but I did speak it properly. That was my second language. Yiddish was first, of course, and it was on the same level as Yiddish. I spoke Ukrainian at school and with classmates, and so I didn't have radio or television, but I spoke Ukrainian and I was proud of it. I mean, it was part of my life, and I love to live where I lived. I didn't know any better, but even though our homes we had no electricity, we had no running water, we had no indoor plumbing, nothing like this, but yet we had a beautiful life. Holidays were celebrated. All the holidays were celebrated in the synagogue, outside the synagogue, at home, and on the street. It was a beautiful life. We had a beautiful life. We lived as Jews.
When was the moment that you could point to when you knew things were changing drastically for Jews there?
Oh, when the Germans arrived.
So did you know they were coming? And when they came, what did they do when they got there?
We didn't know about Germans coming. We had no radio. We had no newspaper. We were ignorant people, you know. We lived in our ignorance. So when the Germans, we didn't know what was going on in Berlin. We didn't know, even when the Germans came to us, we didn't know what was going on in Babi Yar. It was all rumors. We couldn't. We had a certain morality. We could never believe that extermination of Jewish people. We never thought this way. We thought, pogroms used to be. It's something in the past, no longer exists. It's a, you know, and during the war, the First World War, my grandfather, Meir, my father's father, lived in the States. So did my other grandfather. Both lived in the States for many years. But they came back. My grandmother, Freyde, my father's mother, she pleaded with my grandfather, bring us to America. She already had a married sister with children living in New York City. And she wanted her grandfather to settle in America, bring us to America. And he refused. Finally, she was so angry and upset about it because he lived in the States for many years. He would send a little bit of money, but the kids had no father. And so she went to see, my grandfather was a follower of the Trisker Rebbe. And she went to see the Trisker Rebbe. She cried before him, she pleaded before him, do something about my husband taking us to America. This Rebbe decided to write a letter to my grandfather ordering him. And when a miracle rabbi like the Trisker Rebbe orders you to bring the family to America, you do it or else, you know. My grandfather wrote back, Ich bin alleine Rebbe. I'm myself a rabbi. Ich komme heim, I'm coming home. Well, he only came enough home to have another child, and then he returned back. He returned only after World War I. But my father was a translator for the German soldiers. And so they became friendly with my father. They would bring things, and they would, they also would come to the house. And of course, with the Jewish home, we were closer to the German soldiers than the Ukrainians were, the Ukrainian Christians. So during the World War II, suddenly a German soldier appears before my grandmother's house and knocks on the door. He comes in, he brings gifts. Surely it was one of the soldiers that used to visit my grandparents during World War I. And so this was very encouraging. Out of this event, they decided that we are safe, we are okay. You know? Another incident, for instance, was when on a Saturday morning, the Germans came to our village and they collected all the adults. The children were left in the home. And so what they did that day, and I still don't understand what happened and what for and why they did it and why they came, but they did a lot of haranguing, threatening, telling Jews not to be lazy, to work harder, you know, this sort of thing, and to wash more often, things like this. They had their own myths about Jews, you know, not washing, not working hard, lazy, what have you. And finally they said, Juden laufen, Jews run. And everyone started running and thinking that they will be shot in the back. But nothing happened. But what happened, in fact, one of the Jewish men, elderly man, fell, and the German soldier ran over to him and helped him to get up. Hey, they're more civilized than the Soviets or the Poles. They helped out this man. From this, they concluded that nothing is going to happen to us. We're safe. And when people asked why did they come and go? And lucky for us, because they didn't kill us. The answer was very simple. Tulia. Tulia was the richest man in our village, not only in the village, but in the whole area for Jews and Gentiles. He had the monopoly on liquor. Can you imagine having the monopoly on liquor? And it's apparently Tulia told the German soldiers and the captain there that they can't win the war and kill Jews. If they want to win the war, better stop treating the Jews the way you've been doing up to now. And the Germans listened to him. And at this point, they decided not to kill us. They decided to send us all home.
Tell me something. I have, you know, so many more questions and so little time. This is now our second conversation. We got to speak a couple of months ago when I was first introduced to you. And I said to you before that I carried your presence with me for a long time because you do not strike me as a sad person. You strike me as someone who's full of life, who's full of energy. How did what happened happen to you and you still come across as a person who has a fulfilled life? Tell me how you found hope in your life all these years since that tragedy.
Well, I'll tell you something. At this point, the older I get, the more I am absorbed in the in the Holocaust.
Huh.
Not only my own and that of my family, but I'm going to begin to cry soon. It hurts. It's painful. But as a young man, I was busy with other things. I never really had dreams about the events of the war or the shooting I saw. It's like as if it never happened. I was busy first studying, then raising a family and earning a living. But of course, I remembered it. I remembered the events, but they were not as hurtful as they are now. And the older I get, must be something psychological about it. I can't understand it. But now I have dreams about it. I hear a motorcycle, for instance, and I think of Germans coming, because when Germans would come to the village, the escort they would come in with a couple of motorcycles, and then the truckloads of German soldiers would show up. So even now, when living in Montreal, it's a free country, free city. I don't live in any danger. So, but I get scared sometimes. I get frightened, and Holocaust events come to my mind.
Yeah, well, thank you for being so incredibly honest and vulnerable about that. I could, as I thought the last time, I could listen to you for hours. We have a Shabbat service we have to finish, but you have incredibly and generously left us 50 copies of your book.
Did they send the books to you? Yeah.
Oh, we have them all out for display, and every person who leaves tonight can take one. And if there are people who need more, we'll get more from the foundation. But thank you for sharing yourself so openly and so deeply, and for bearing witness. And this is the promise we make you, is that we won't forget your story. We'll share it, and we'll continue to make sure that we live with the kind of hope and intention that you have. And we'll make sure that maybe we'll fulfill your childhood dream. You said before that you never thought that Jews died, and obviously we all do, but the Jewish people don't have to die. And
No.
that's the lesson that we take from there. And we just really appreciate you being here this evening with us.
Because we live now in the crazy world. There are madmen who are at the heads of state, and some of them with atomic weapons. And
Yes.
it's more dangerous maybe than one Hitler that was around. Now it's really, really dangerous times with
People
running countries.
we can try to be different than that. So Shabbat Shalom, and thank you so very much, Pinchas.
And with those words, and with each story and each testimony, as the one we just witnessed, we pray that these memories only be strengthened, that they don't fade, with the hope that those who remember, regardless of how hard it is to remember, will not allow this tragedy to be repeated. So tonight, as we honor the heroes, the martyrs, the survivors, and the victims, as we use this day to reflect, to remember, and to educate, we memorialize the greatest tragedies experienced by the Jewish people. As we light 6 candles in memory of those who perished during those dark days, we implore ourselves to work towards a day devoid of hate and filled with peace.
Eli,
שלא ייגמר לעולם. החול והים רשרוש של המים ברק השמיים תפילת אדם החול והים רשרוש של המים ברק השמיים תפילת האדם. Oh God, my God, I pray that these things never end. The sand and the sea, the rush of the waters, the crash of the heavens, the prayer of the heart, the sand and the sea, the rush of the waters, the crash of the heavens, the prayer of the heart.
And we add to those who we remember this Yom HaShoah with the names of those we are remembering today in our own lives through the words of Mourner's Kaddish. These words that honor the lives of those in our families and our communities whom we have lost. As part of honoring their memories, when you hear the name of a loved one, if you feel so inclined, we invite you to rise in honor of their memory. We're in a period of Shiva, the first 7 days of mourning, remembering Judith Liebman Hyman, widow of the late Charles Gary Hyman, sister of Ruth Steckelmid and Fred Melamed, Beth and Fred Rabin, and Janet and Gary Jacobs, aunt of Rachel and Paul Selvin, Peter Steckelman and Brian Gold, and Adam and Betsy Steckelman, mother of Jake and Vanessa Hyman, and Max and Kelly Reese, and grandmother of Sydney and Eli. And we're saddened to announce the passing of Ira R. Goldstein, husband of Beverly Goldstein, father of Allison and Scott Riskin, Ian Goldstein, Elise and Gary Vasselman, Douglas and Beth Goldstein, and Richard and Erica Goldstein, and grandfather of Matthew and Molly, Lindsay and Jake, Emily and Seth, Brittany and Sydney, and Harrison, Bennett, and Aiden. We're in a period of Shloshim, the first 30 days of mourning, for Ezra Mishal, Elliot Goldstein, Janet Stearns, Dr. Howard Charles Schwartz, and Ira Zarin. And it's the yard site, the anniversary of the passing of Isaac Beck, Barbara Paley Belzy, Louis Daniz, Louis Danzig, Michael Davis, Harry Denberg, Sam S. Dreyfus, Emmanuel Dreyfus, Isaac K. Ellis, Elsie Finkler, Sadie R. Forster, Fred Freeman, May Kind Goldsmith, Sarah Mann Green, Louis Green, Joel L. Gutterman, Stanley B. Hausman, Ada Paul Heller, Minna Khan, Minnie Steinloff Khan, Sophie Kamler, Nathaniel King, Ethel Klein, Esther Kleiner, William Levine, Saul Levinson, Abraham Lewis, Lacey Marks, Leah Marachnik, Abraham Marin, Abraham Metzger, Kenneth Paul Miller, Naomi D. Nass, Harold David Otterman, Max Pickard, Marcia Pollock, Harold J. Prager, Marjorie King Racklin, Ruth Rebenfeld, Helen Feit Ricklin, Martha Sachs, Joseph Schaefer, Robert Schechter, Susan Schwartz, George J. Sank, Jack Small, Emma V. Summer, Hazel Steinberg, Sadie Strauss, Ethel Straver, Olga Jacoby Van Mappes, and Ida S. Vollenhover. And we'll join together as one sacred community as we rise for the words of Mourner's Kaddish. Yitgadal vid kadash shemei rabbah, be'alma divrach hirute ve'amlich malchute, b'chai chon uvyome chon, uvchaye dechol beit Yisrael, ba'gala uvizman kari v'imru amen. Yehi shmei rabbah mevarach le'olam u'almei almaya, yitbarach v'ishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shmei dekudesha barechu. Le'ela min kol berchata v'shirata, tushbachata v'nechamata, ta'amiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shemaya v'chaim, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Osei shalom b'mromav, huya se shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. May the one who creates harmony on high bring peace to us and to all Israel. And together we'll say, Amen. And please be seated. We have a few announcements. First off, we have a new art exhibit in our art gallery outside of the chapel. The artist is Jeanette Hershkowitz and her collection called In the Moment. It's a beautiful collection. Recommend taking a look at it. A couple other announcements. Next Shabbat, it's going to be an exciting evening. We are celebrating Rabbi Gwertz's 25 years in the rabbinate, and I encourage you to register. All the information is in your order of worship. And of course, as was mentioned earlier, Mitzvah Day is coming up on Sunday. We invite everybody to come. There's opportunities for all ages to participate and to get involved. And of course, we have 7 candles here, only lighting 6 of them so far. And our 7th candle is our light of hope, the light that shines bright knowing that the Jewish community is strong and vibrant and flourishing even in the face of hate. And what represents that hope is our children, the next generations. And this Shabbat, we have 2 young people who represent that future so well, becoming B'nai Mitzvah this weekend. So I'd like to invite up Gabby and Jax to come lead us as we light the 7th candle and to lead us in Kiddush and Motzi. So before you do, we're going to hand you Kiddush cups. And before you bless, these Kiddush cups are a gift from our Temple Women's Association and Brotherhood. And we hope you don't just use them tonight, but many, many more joyous occasions to come in your life. And we'll let you take it away.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Baruch Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kichanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu v'shabbat kodsho v'hava uvratzon hinhilanu zikaron lema'aseh v'reishit ki hu yom tehillah lemikra et kodesh Seher litziat mitraim kivanu v'charta ve'otanu kidasha mikol ha'amim בשבת קודשך באהבה ורצון הנהלתנו. ברוך אתה אדוני מקדש השבת. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz.
Amen. Great job, guys. Way to go. Take yourself up here. What's the end? No, you have to do something.
We'll conclude with the melody with which we began, a nigun that is a celebration of our spirits joining together in song. Please join us. Let's lift our voices together in honor of our Jewish spirit and all of the memory that we hold.
Adonai Ozeh Amo Yitain, Adonai Varech et Amo Shalom. Dear God, may you grant us strength and may you grant us peace. Please join me in saying Amen.
Amen.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbos.